we're having a lot of conversations with insurance companies right now. They're very eager to pay for food like they pay for medication. And that's not just something that's, founders just like wacky dreams. They've already set aside massive amounts of cash in order to do it. They're just struggling to find ways to deploy it in a responsible way.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Sammy Faycurry, co-founder and CEO of Fay. In this episode, we talk about increasing access to nutrition counseling. Sammy explains Fay's three-sided marketplace connecting dietitians, patients, and insurance companies. Plus, we discuss the evolving food as medicine landscape, raising $25 million in venture funding, and the rise of GLP-1s. Let's get into it. Today's episode is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM provides fitness and health facilities with smart workout solutions built on its ecosystem of hardware, software, and partners. But it's more than cool tech. Their connected training experience delivers business results while helping members reach their wellness goals. If you run a gym, health club, YMCA, or any kind of fitness facility, you should check them out. Visit egym.com to learn more. Hi, Sammy. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Joe, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to the conversation. And right at the top, let's just kick it off with introduce yourself and tell us about Fay.
So my name is Sammy Faycurry. I started Fay. I grew up in an entrepreneurial kind of household. My dad owned, grocery stores and restaurants growing up. It was kind of how I hung out with my dad, was get to go to work with him and pick up produce in the morning. And I knew I always wanted to start something, and was always toying around with different startup ideas, and most of them were really horrible, like just absolutely atrocious. And I ended up getting into business school, and so kind of got the summer to just try things out. And one of the things that I was doing was I was helping my mom and my sister start their private practice. So they're registered dietitians. And what I learned was there's so much for therapists in the mental health care space. I think you've seen many of them, right? Growth therapy, Sondermind, many of these business in a box, where therapists have great access to starting a private practice, but no one was really building anything for dietitians. And I was like, okay, well, let me start building it for my mom and my sister. You also start to hear these stories where people have really emotional, really difficult eating disorders and just really challenging relationships with food. It was just so crazy to see these stories, and I just became in love and obsessed. I moved to Cambridge, and I'm like trying to build this thing. I'm strapping it together with low code, no code tools. The thing is running on like bubblegum, WordPress, and Airtable. I mean, literally that's it. And I'm like, manually submitting CMS 1500 claims, manually doing, insurance credentialing. And I started to realize that technology was so unbelievably important, and really, really fortunate to get connected with just the absolute best co-founder, Mark Stefanski. And we met basically through like a co-founder dating app, which seems like, yeah, like how are these things successful? It's like, just seems like an absolute train wreck from the very start. And we were lucky enough to have some mutual friends as well that we had learned about. And we started working together. And that was kind of the last straw. I ended up dropping out of HBS. I technically took a leave of absence. He left his job. We went and we raised a seed round. At that point we had bootstrapped to $500,000 in ARR, had 30 dietitians in the network. Came back a year later at 300 dietitians. We're like one of the fastest, I think like the fastest growing company in the space for the year, with the lowest burn to growth ratio. Now, fast forward to today, I believe we are about to hit 1,400 dietitians as of, today.
When you think of how you serve dietitians, and then kind of like almost three sides of that marketplace, patients, dietitians, and insurers, are you marketing to dietitians? Are you building out both sides of the marketplace in terms of acquiring those users? How do all those pieces kind of fit together?
Exactly. So yeah, so it's I think the three-sided marketplace is exactly the answer, and that's a little bit of the beauty and the complexity of what we've been able to achieve, right? So we like to call it a B2B to C kind of software enabled network, right? So we are I think first and foremost we cater to the dietitian, empower them to start their own business in a box. And it comes integrated, built in with referral partnerships so they can get clients, so they can attract, and build their own reputation in their own business. But we also help them with marketing and we also help insurance companies save money at the end of the day too. So that kind of creates this just like phenomenal flywheel.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too in this case, like thinking about the broader food as medicine landscape, also the role of dietitians. And I don't know that I've talked to many companies or founders who've really started with that, the pain point around the dietitian. Like, I think oftentimes it's like, hey, how do we get people access to nutrition, dietitian, food, or how do we make sure that insurance pays for it? But it sounds like your particular, you know, starting point, pain point was like, hey, how do we help dietitians? What is that space like in terms of the number of dietitians? Do they have trouble reaching clients? Is it, a kind of fast growing space such that like solving that end of the equation is the best or right place to start? Like, how do you think about that landscape? And maybe for people who aren't familiar.
I think for me, I was drawn to the space to help my mom and my sister. And there's a great amount of passion in helping the dietitian and helping them just harness their powers because I feel like they're like amazing providers. There's not many of them, right? So there's only about 100,000. I don't think they're as put in the spotlight as they should be, right? So I think if you look at the therapist market in comparison, there's almost quadruple as many therapists. But I think the therapist model is very understood and it's very mature. But for dietitians, it's a smaller cohort, and even I think like outpatient dietitian care in a hospital system itself is not mature and necessarily super built out in the way that one might expect. And so in my hometown in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, my mom was the one of the only dietitians that accepted Cigna insurance and was willing to work with people who were diabetic and had a binge eating disorder. There was no one else for miles. And so there was an immediate access issue that, day one. And insurance companies, when we would talk to them, would say things like, we were just really struggling to find ways to get people to get this kind of care. And I think dietitians were really intimidated to some extent with how do you get a network with insurance? How do you submit claims? How do you fight for yourself and negotiate with insurance companies? If a claim comes back denied, how do you sit on hold for an hour with the insurance company and fight that? How do you help a client check their eligibility? There's so much of a barrier, and so just seeing that there was so much to do there was the start of all of this, and just I think eliminating those barriers for the dietitian was what created a lot of opportunity. And sometimes I felt like people were approaching the space in the wrong way. I feel like by activating just like phenomenal provider group, we've been able to achieve so much versus I think folks have kind of come from it in different lenses, which it never really resonated with me necessarily. But this is kind of the approach that got us excited and got us to where we are today.
The piece around insurance and kind of removing these barriers, at what point did you make that connection? Like, okay, you're kind of solving this problem right in front of you for your mom and your sister, as you talked about it. And then you start to kind of chip away at it for them. And then is there an unlock that says, like, I've figured this out and I figured out how we can apply technology to this problem to make this more accessible for all dietitians? Was that a series of moments and developments? Was it kind of connecting and finding the co-founder that then led you down that path? Like, how quickly were you able to make that realization that, like, oh, if we figure X or maybe X, Y, and Z out, like, this could be something that then is a scalable venture backed business versus like, hey, me working to solve this isolated problem to like be helpful, right, for your mom and your sister?
I mean, something that we really value at the company, and you're going to hear it many, many times. We do love to do things that don't scale. Love that, and it's probably very annoying to many people. And because I was so obsessed with just helping my mom and my sister, I was in the office answering phones, like literally putting pen to paper, scheduling clients coming in needing help, on the phone with insurance companies, just asking, how do I get network? Being told to call this number, call that number, call this number, call that number, fill out this form on the website, you know, spin around 3 times, you know. I think a lot of people may not go through that experience, right? And to end up on the phone with the right person who you can then tell your story, tell the story about my mom and my sister, and kind of starts there, and you get your first contract. And then, I mean, now today, when we're forming partnerships with insurance companies, we're selling, we're talking about our outcomes, and we're doing third party validation of our outcomes, and complex cost saving analysis. But day one, 0 to 1, it was, how willing were we to chew nails? How long was I willing to stay on the phone and be stuck on hold? Even trying to figure out a CMS 1500 claim, and doing it manually. When you submit a claim, and you do it incorrectly, you submit it. You don't know the result of that claim until maybe a week, 2 weeks to a month later, right? You get on the phone, and then trying to learn, understand coverage. When you're trying to check eligibility, these things take a great deal of time and sweat just to understand the underbelly of the system. And I had a hard time figuring it out. And my mom and my sister, I'm like, they're amazing care providers. They shouldn't have to do they shouldn't have to do this, right? And I'm of course a big believer in the power of product, and in engineering, and software. And we've built just a freaking phenomenal product and engineering team, and just seeing how much of it could be automated. And you don't realize it until you're doing it manually. So it goes back to this concept of do things that don't scale. But you also had this second comment about the nature of it just being something that you're doing. And then I think there's also, though, this separate decision of, okay, you could build a phenomenal technology company, right? Why go raise VC money as well? I think that's also a separate question.
At what point did you realize that it was a venture scale idea?
I mean, it's the heat of 2021, right? I mean, it's the feeling in the air is wild in terms of, I think it's kind of the height of crypto energy, I think. And the way Mark and I are as co-founders together is, we are really thoughtful about what we are building, why we're building it, and the problem we are trying to solve. We think that we are building such a phenomenal product, right? So we've got phenomenal product market fit. We are helping dietitians. We are growing just fine, right? Because just by creating access to this kind of care, we're growing. The model is sustainable. We're prioritizing the dietitian. Clients are getting phenomenal care. Then something, sort of a stroke of luck happens with COVID. Nutrition used to only be reimbursed in an in-person environment, and then it's reimbursed in a virtual environment. So all of a sudden, we can start to build the company as well and scale it with no real estate. And it's one of the very few things that stayed after the emergency as well, and it's still reimbursable today. But anyway, so we're like, why would we go raise VC money? Especially because we would have, like, just casually would, go talk to a VC like once or twice. We were just like, okay, let's go, talk to an investor. And like the immediate first question we got was, well, what's the crypto angle on this? And we were like, you got to be absolutely kidding me, right? So it's like, I think, let's just keep putting our head down, and let's build and bootstrap, and let's go raise when this thing pops. Literally, we're like, let's go actually build a good company that helps people and is a sustainable business model that is adding value. And let's go to market when, it's the classic Warren Buffett attitude of, be fearful when people are greedy, and be greedy when people are fearful. basically go out there to raise our seed when everyone's kind of licking their wounds. And I think we realized to ourselves, as much as we like to buy into the sort of like kind of tech startup hysteria, it ultimately became what was best for the business. Because for dietitians, in order to really serve the dietitians, they just needed a lot of support. They needed a lot of scale. They needed a lot of tooling. And it became almost selfish to not go and fundraise, to go and not build them, right, the business that they deserve. And we said to ourselves, let's kind of suck it up and let's go find the right partner that we felt that shared our vision, and wasn't kind of was super long-term thinking, and wasn't going to be someone who was going to kind of someone of the same attitude, right? They're looking to be greedy when other people are fearful, and they've been measured this whole time. I think we found really good partners, both Holly and Reva at General Catalyst, and Farzad and Rami in 1984 have been like were phenomenal with us at the seed, and then we're able to just that little bit of funding at the seed was just able to impact so many people, and I think that was experienced through just the phenomenal growth, right? From going from 30 to 300 dietitians. And then, we meet Nicole at Forerunner, and we're lucky enough to have everyone GC in 1984 also doubling down. And it was just so much unison and just feel supported, where people understand the value of what we're building and focus on what's important. And there's lots of pressure in the market. And there's lots of pressure to be very sometimes short term thinking. People we're hearing from some of our colleagues who have other investors that aren't necessarily so lucky, and that's been super important. So, and I think it'll continue to be important, right? That we choose and continue to be responsible, because it's a soft spot for us, right? It's not just myself anymore with my mom and my sister as dietitians, but the people we've hired, right? They're people who their mother-in-laws are dietitians. Like the whole team is people who have had a very personal connection to the space. So finding the right partner, if you can do it, becomes really important.
The Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by our friends at EGYM. This is an exciting partnership for us, and not just because EGYM makes some of the most innovative fitness products out there, but because the entire EGYM team, led by their CEO Philip, is committed to making health, fitness, and well-being more accessible for everyone. And that's a mission we can get behind. By combining their smart equipment with integrated software and hundreds of connected partner brands, EGYM helps fitness facilities stand out by delivering a personalized, gamified workout experience that improves outcomes and member engagement. So if you're a gym or health club operator thinking about how to best serve your members while driving business results, go see what EGYM is up to at egym.com. You talked about keep your head down and just build, and in some ways, let those results speak for themselves, leverage that when the time was right to go out and raise funding. When it comes to health outcomes and these insurance partnerships, that being such a huge part of it, how are you measuring this and quantifying it to make them want to engage and stay engaged?
Well, in the beginning, it wasn't as important, I will say, and there was a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of myths, I think, in the market, and I think that's common for many people when one is starting a company. Is there's a lot of myths swirling around. There's a lot of rumors, and it's important to make the judgment call and listen to your intuition, and have a data informed gut, and just call out what is and what isn't. And we I think we got some false things in the early days. Yeah, that wasn't super important, and it only I think recently started to become a lot more important. And I think many people kind of start by boiling the ocean, right? So you think of outcomes, even just starting tracking patient reported metrics, right? Whether that be integrating with a scale, right? Whether that's a scale or whether that's a smart device they have already, right? Or whether that's them reporting their own metrics, whether that's them sharing their own labs, having them respond to surveys, having providers complete surveys, right? These are things that, as you grow and as you scale, you can set these things up. And sometimes folks maybe potentially overcomplicate it, right? It could start with a small survey and you're collecting phenomenal data, and then you kind of evolve that survey, and then you unpack it and you kind of evolve outcomes. I mean, now today we collect outcomes and then we share those not just with the payers, because we have conversations with the payers and we ask them, and that's a whole other conversation. Like, how do you get on the phone? How do you get on the phone with the right person at the payer? But asking them, what matters to you, and just collecting a list of things that matter to them, and making sure that we're building that into the surveys, and then making sure that we work with like any third party auditors that we've heard are respected. So rather than just Googling around, we'll ask the insurance representative, okay, I could send you a survey, but who do you respect? Right? It was validated by who? How would you respect it the most? Because we see every day the amazing outcomes. How do we prove that to you in a way that would make you would raise your eyebrows?
Another question I wanted to ask you, initially you mentioned, just even as an example, your mom kind of specializing in the types of patients that she would see and whether or not that was covered by insurance. How do you make sure that you're matching, patients and dietitians, not just based on location and insurance, but even when it gets down to like what they're suffering from, what do they want to improve, and specific health indicators and different conditions?
We've thought a lot about whether or not we should have some matching quiz and matching algorithm, and we have always gone against it. I'm not saying we won't do it in the future. And I actually remember meeting with a VC who said, I didn't like your website because when I landed on it, I was overwhelmed. It was just a filter feature where I could choose from any provider. And if I was just given three options from a quiz, that would make me a lot happier. And like, I was a little bit more immature back then. So I think like we wanted to end the meeting there and then. And we've always been more of a fan of just giving people full optionality to see the full directory of who and what would be available, and just optimizing for choice, because in the world of nutrition in general, there's so much noise. There's a lot of people giving nutrition advice who shouldn't be giving nutrition advice. And so the fact that like our platform in general just verifies dietitians and makes sure that they're credentialed, is just, you're already selecting from the best of the best. And so I think for us, we wanna optimize on choice, right? You could search by filter, you could search by modality, and I think we're always adding new kind of features. What we want to, what's been very important for people to connect with dietitians that are Black or African American, and that's been one that we've added. Spanish speaking dietitians, and so I think we're always looking to expand. We'll continue to evolve it, and I think we've been experimenting a little bit with AI driven matching, but yeah, I think that's been a kind of our core approach.
When you talked about the role of food, the impact, obviously the impact of the dietitians, and even in terms of like outcomes, potentially using like a smart scale. When you think about like the broader landscape, whether it's wearables, meal delivery, other complementary offerings, how do you think about leveraging these things, potential partnerships, integrating them into the offering? What does that look like at this point?
Yeah, I think right now we are so focused on providing a business in a box, and helping the dietitian, and just creating access, partnering with as many insurance plans, employers, schools as possible. That's our core focus. We're having a lot of conversations with insurance companies right now. They're very eager to pay for food like they pay for medication. And that's not just something that's, you know, founders just like wacky dreams. It's things where they've already set aside massive amounts of cash in order to do it. They're just struggling to find ways to deploy it in a responsible way. And I kid you not, to show you how unaddressed this market is, I'll be on the phone with an insurance company and they'll hear how many dietitians we'll have. And they'll say, "What, you have 1,400?" I said, "What? You have 1,400 dietitians? Where have you guys been? How did this happen all of a sudden?" And then they're yanking us by our collar into boardrooms because they're like, we are looking to partner with people to figure out how we can pay for food. We trust the dietitian the most to be the sort of like guardian, I guess, of those funds. So I think, will we ever make food ourselves? Probably not. I think we're mostly excited about partnering with phenomenal infrastructure that exists, whether that be any of the food service delivery companies that exist today. I think that'll be the plan of where we go in the future.
And then another just top of mind. Feel like you can't have any conversation about food and dietitians without talking about GLP-1s and the impact of Ozempic. And, whether it's talk to, again, founders in this space, it's like they want to be complementary, they want to be a replacement, they want to be an off ramp. Is it impacting the business? How do you think about it?
It's so funny looking back on it because it ended up being one of the greatest things for the business in a very obvious way, where medications just increase the importance of how people think about food, how people eat. It just had such an impact on people's food that increased attention to people seeing a dietitian. It's increased doctors, recommending people see a dietitian. So that's been really, really interesting to see. When it comes to, I think, like in general lifestyle change, I think society, we always get super excited because I think society is hopeful, right? We're always looking for this next thing, and you actually look back on it, it reminds me a lot of like Orlistat over the counter, which I think maybe people have forgotten. It's like Orlistat was supposed to be, the weight loss drug, right? Of I think it was like the early thousands. Someone has to maybe fact check me on that. But you know, people kind of learned over time. You can't get away of the need for lifestyle change. I think we've gone through this similar journey with GLP-1s. They are life changing for many people, but we've yet to find the miracle drugs. And food and nutrition continue to be important.
When you think about, if it's, we're already past the halfway point in the year, you recently announced, I think it was 20 million in new funding, obviously wanting to continue to grow. What do the key priorities, KPIs, like how are you talking to the team about, hey, this is what we need to accomplish, even if it's by the end of 2024, or what's top of mind for you that you're both excited about, but also like focused on achieving?
Yeah, it sounds very boring, but for us, it's just continuing to do the same thing over and over. Where we want to reach 2,000 dietitians as soon as possible. And people are like, by when? The team is always like, when? I'm like, yesterday. I think there are folks, and there are definitely geographies where people are looking for care and still can't find it. I think we've got a large network. And I think if you go to our website, you'll be able to find care, but there are still pockets where, in many specialties, where we don't have enough access yet, and that bothers many of us. I think there are also tons of insurance companies, right? Just many of the comments that we get every day. There's a new insurance company that someone's begging us to accept, and that hurts really hard. We don't take Medicare yet. I want to so badly. We don't take Medicaid. We want to we want to so badly, but we need to do these things responsibly, right? There's no point in not being able to serve people and serve them like in the ways that in the ways they deserve. So for us, it's continuing to be able to reach as many people as possible and do that as quickly as we can. And this also kind of goes into the decision of like why take funding, right? Because the slower we go, the more selfish we are, right? The more people that can't get the care they need, the more people that I'd say just like don't get help and just feel alone. And so speed and focus is the most important thing to not just reach like the company's goals, but the broader need in the market.
When you think about what it's going to take to get there in terms of the team now, how have you approached like building the team? How big is the team? Like, how are you thinking about like continuing to scale that focus? Because as you're talking about it, that's what came to my mind. It's like it can be difficult to say like, hey, what we're doing is super important, and these are the things that we need to focus on, and not to get distracted. So I guess, how are you approach like keeping everybody on the same page, kind of building that culture and making sure that you're continuing to progress towards that goal?
Yeah. It's like one of our favorite topics to talk about. People is so important to the company. I say it's our biggest differentiator, which is a lame. It's like that's such a lame thing to say. People roll their eyes, but it's like it's the freaking truth. Like I could talk forever about a million differentiators, product and contracts with the insurance companies, and we measure outcomes, and you know, but the team is rock solid, and it is such a heavy investment in the early days of getting it right. I think we're a bit unique, right? We're relatively super flat. We don't even have, we don't have titles. You're either operations at Fay or you're engineering at Fay. We have just found it super effective, at least for now, right? We'll see how long that lasts, to focus people around understanding like what are the core goals and what are the core responsibilities and the core metrics people are responsible for. And we get folks many times, like super brilliant people that went to schools and are at jobs that I could have never even gotten my foot in the door at, say things like, I need this title, and it was like huge red flag, right? Like immediately out the door. And looking for people who are not only just like raw talent, just smart and driven, but people who are really, really driven is super important to us. There's a bit of a bug that you catch too at the company where when you come and you see the emails, you see how many people are relying on us, right? Dietitians are running their practice with us. They may be paying their mortgage, right? They may be paying car payment. They may be sending their kids through schools. Clients and patients, right? These doctors are sending their patients to us. People who they're on their last straw, right? They've tried everything. And seeing a dietitian is maybe that one. They're going to try that one last thing, and you just get so addicted to helping cater to these people that you're just giving so much of yourself, and not a lot of people can do it. And it's a sacrifice that, like, we're very upfront with people when we're during the hiring process. We're like, sounds cool, right? We're a rocket ship, we're growing super fast. Isn't that what everyone wants? Everyone wants to be super fast, sexy company, because that's the thing that makes your resume, right? You get on this team. Oh, like, VC will love you. Get hired right up. Go start your own company. Go raise a pre-seed fund like that, and it comes at a huge sacrifice. And not everyone can make that sacrifice. So we make that. I think we make that super clear up front, and we try to scare people away as much as possible. Now, the interesting thing, right, is we were actually in stealth for a very long time. We had no LinkedIn, and so what happened was when would recruit, we had no LinkedIn. So people really had to think critically about this company, right? Do I join this company? They have no LinkedIn. They said they raised a round. They said they have money. I hope they do. They had to really kick the tires and make some critical thinking, independent thinking decisions. And then something happened where we decided to announce and come out of stealth mode. And it's kind of hilarious because we were in stealth mode for an extremely long time. We got a LinkedIn, and something very different happened. All of a sudden, we were getting 12,000 applications, and all of a sudden, there were other signals that people were relying on in the market, and something started to not work anymore. We'd give the spiel, or we'd try to scare people away, and we'd say, "This is the place where we put it all on the line. We've got a special thing. We're working hard. We are serving the dietitian and their clients." Eyes would glaze over because now we've got, a very silly TechCrunch article. And they're like, yes, yes, I hear you. We're like, are you sure you hear us? Yes. And sometimes it wouldn't work out because there's other signals now that are kind of interfering. So we have to do something a little bit different where we have to make a judgment call for ourselves, which is, I know this person says that they're ready to join an early stage, fast growing company, but do we believe them? And that's something very, very new and very different that we're just now getting used to.
Yeah, as we wrap up and get you out of here, for whether it's dietitians that are potentially interested in learning more and moving their practice onto Fay, or patients that are looking for a dietitian that's covered by insurance, where would you point people to learn more and follow along?
Faynutrition.com. I think I always ask people, I'm like, what insurance do you have? And then most major, commercial plans, it's covered. Many people don't know it's a benefit. I could say you can always use it. Some people are like, well, are you telling me, what are you telling me? You're telling me I need to lose weight? I think just folks who are interested in brushing up on that, they've gone to a therapist for a while and they're looking for that next step of their health journey. Or maybe they've always wanted to talk to a dietitian. They thought it was super expensive. Also, love your feedback. You could catch me on LinkedIn. Always love to hear people's thoughts And yeah, very thankful to be here. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks for making some time today. We'll make sure everything is linked up in the show notes here, and I'm really excited to share the conversation. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you got value from the conversation, please consider subscribing and sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It's a massive help. And if you want more content like this, including news and insights on the latest industry developments, subscribe to the Fitt Insider newsletter at insider.fitt.co. And one more thing, you can learn more about our recruiting and consulting services at fitt.co. That's fitt.co. I'll see you here next week.